You've entered into a world of incels and nerds, seeing and smelling things you'd never believe to be real. And realizing that it's too late, you've entered into the Stinky Zone.
Hey, I'm Wizard in a T-shirt. I should try that again. Hey, I'm Wizard in a T-shirt. You might recognize me from some of the tabletop skits that I've done on that app where all the teens dance and the war footage is posted. We all love a good scary story. The ones that bring chills up our spines and even the ones that make us feel like we're in the moment as it is. But the best kind of stories aren't the ones that are just terrible, but also hilarious. These horror stories that I tell are not from the world that we know, but from within the tabletop and local game stores. Today, I have to share some tabletop horror stories that are found across the deep, dark, disgusting depths of Reddit that span across the three main tabletop games, Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, and Dungeons & Dragons. So, as it is, let's get into it. I think my cat just jumped off the table. The first story we're going to start out with starts in Warhammer 40k. This was posted by Grief Slinger on the Warhammer Reddit about 7 months ago, so I believe this was like in the middle of 9th edition at the time. I think maybe barely entering the 10th. I don't know. But either way, let's go ahead and hop into it. So I went to my local game store for a game last weekend. My opponent was an employee at the store, so there was a few times when he had to help customers, work the register, or other things. As I'm waiting, I started watching the other game at the table next to ours. Not commentating, because I know that's annoying to some, just observing. One of the players was getting pretty upset for some reason. I don't know what it is, but to me it's always a good time whenever I'm like playing a game and then out of nowhere in the background I just hear some random dude screaming and shouting about the game. Like it's like I get to experience my fight phase and then I get to watch a real life fight phase. It's always entertaining to me. I don't know what it is. It was a Tyranids, which is the first player, versus Necrons, which is the second player. They were in the middle of Battle Round 2 when I started watching, and the Nids player had just used Shadow in the Warp. Mr. Necron started complaining that it's a bullshit OP ability, and that his army should be immune to leadership and battle shock because they are robots with no soul. Player 1 tried to explain that the tabletop doesn't always reflect the lore, but Player 2 wasn't having it. Started cussing and pacing, and yelling that it's a cheap move when he failed one of his battle shock tests. It's always bizarre to me when people try to pull the lore card in a tabletop game, because it's like, dude, you have to understand that the story and the rules are very separate, but it's always funny when you have a guy that's like, well, in reality, that wouldn't happen. That would never end. It's like, well, it doesn't matter, dude. Does it have a health bar? Yeah, shut the fuck up. This sort of behavior went on for several hours. Some more fun highlights include threatening to kill himself if he failed his next saving it. Yeah. Look, I know that that's like not funny, but the part that I think about that just makes me laugh is the idea that every single time you deal damage to this person, they're flat out just going to be rolling their hands, just being like, threatening a store employee, my opponent, for laughing at his tantrum. Exact words were, if you keep laughing, you're not going to wake up tomorrow. You know, you gotta have some balls to really do that, because an employee at any moment could just flat out take your shit and be like, get out. Your game is over. Like, I'm pretty certain if I were to be threatened, it's one of those situations where I'd be like, yeah, dude, you can kind of go to another game store and try that shit somewhere else, because, yeah, not here, dude, not here. Picking up one of his models and throwing it across the room after it died. Loudly proclaiming that he's done with 40k, to which no one reacted. Like, what did you think anyone would care that a toxic player is leaving the hobby? Complaining that he never won a game in his 6 months of playing. Never mind the fact that he really only plays once every few weeks. Like, how can you get mad and be like, I don't win when you don't play? You know, it's like, you can't really have a reaction like that if you're not, like, competitively playing enough. You can't just be like, I never win, when it's like, well, you never play. Saying he already lost and there was nothing he could do to win at this point. Mind you, he only has lost 5 Necron warriors and 4 of the 22 wounds on his monolith, and it's still turn 2. You know, I've had my moments in games where I've thought to myself, oh yeah, there's no way I'm gonna save this. This is over. But I don't think I've ever had a moment where I've only lost like a couple of models and just been like, this game is done. There's nothing to be done. There's nothing to do. Like, on its own, that's just being a sore loser, because you always have to prep to either lose or win. You never really know in 40k. And plus, it's not always about the strategy, it's sometimes about how the dice roll out. So if you're rolling shitty hands, I mean, that's how the story goes, you know? straight up ignoring advice or suggestions on ways he could win. He'd say, "There's no way for me to win. I can't kill his big models, Tervagon and Moloch." I say, "Don't focus so hard on killing the big tanks that are way out in the field. Take the objectives to stop him from earning points, and you can easily pull this off." He then proceeded to dump every single shot into the Moloch that wasn't even near the point, rolled poorly, and failed to kill it. Then ranted about how the game is rigged and against him because his dice hated him. I mean, it's like I said, man, the dice tell your story, not your army, so. Their game finally ended at 8 p.m. after 7.5 hours, with him losing and once again saying he's done with Warhammer. Dude, I've played some long games, but if it's 7.5 hours, either one guy or both guys do not know the rules to their army, which is totally normal, but 7.5 hours is a whole fucking day of work for 40k, I'll tell you that. We once again tried to tell him he just needs practice and to learn from the games he loses, but he didn't want to hear it, saying, "I can't learn from losing. My strategies don't work, so I can't get better at them. If I could win, I could learn what to do." And then he proceeded to complain some more. After he left, I spoke to the store employees and his opponent. At first, I thought maybe he just had a bad day and was stressed out. But no. Apparently, he's like this every time he plays. My opponent said that he actually swept his arm and sent his own models off the table last time he played. Dude, I'm telling you, if I ever actually saw that, God, that would be like a Christmas morning for me. I'd be so happy to see someone destroy their own army. Not mine, though. I'd kick your ass. But if you destroy your own, I'll fucking watch with a bowl of popcorn, dude. I honestly thought the horror stories all over Reddit and YouTube were exaggerated or fake. Now I understand that I have decided to never play against this guy or even address him when I see him. I don't think my blood pressure can take it. Oh, and after all that, he posted it on the store Discord server, looking for a game the next day. You know, there's like petty losers when it comes to this game, but there's also people that just have such a hard time accepting a loss or the idea that like they don't win or they can't win. And the best thing I can always say, man, is it's sometimes not going to always be how the way you play your models. It's going to be the way you roll the dice. You can't control that. That's just life. That's how the game works. You can sit there and complain and cry and bullshit about it, but it's not like the dice are going to magically start flipping sixes after that. You know what I'm saying? I got to say, too, it's always got to be like a really good time for a game store employee when they're just seeing someone freak out. Like, it's probably not fun when you have to intervene and talk to them, but God, dude. It's such a great time and you get to watch someone just lose their shit, I bet. Up next on our tabletop terror tales, we move on to Magic the Gathering, where this was posted by Thrash Medalix. I'm sorry if I butcher that, I'm fucking shitty when it comes to names. But the story called, "Well, That Just Happened." I play Commander every Friday night at a game store that's a bit of a commute nowadays, but the people there are awesome, so it tends to be worth it. The owners are nice, the other players are awesome, the games are fun. And sometimes, I'll even help other players and advice, or hooking them up with cards that I don't use or whatnot. That's always the baller thing about a lot of the people in the community for Magic, is they're always willing to like share, or if they have like extra stuff that they're not even using, that's not even a value, they'll just be like, "Here, take it, I don't need it, I've got like 30 of these." On this particular evening, while I was taking a small break from the games, one of the regulars there, we'll just call him Joey, invited me and a couple of others for a game. Because he wanted to test out a custom proxy deck he made that was a big love letter to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monster era. It was honestly very well put together, even if it still needed a few things ironed out here and there. You can tell it was a big passion project, and I honestly hope to play against it again. They kind of go on to talk about how cool the Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck is, but in the process of it, they also explain that two other players show up named Will and Derek. Around turn 7 or 8, I think, however, it was when I realized Derek had brought his younger brother. I really only met him once, and I didn't care for him because the one interaction I had with him, he voiced support for the people who were harassing the old rule committee due to the Locust/Crypt bans, going as far as saying their death threats were completely okay since they didn't follow through with the threats. Yeah, dude, it's totally fine. Yeah, you could definitely say you're gonna, like, blast someone's skull open, but as long as you don't do it, that's alright. It's like, that's some crazy logic right there. That's some, like, teenager logic, like, but I didn't do it. Just because I said I was gonna murder him, I didn't mean I was actually gonna do it. He seemed incredibly agitated, and he quickly made it apparent that he had come somewhat unwillingly with his brother to play a single game, and was upset that he was just hanging out without playing a game. Shortly after this, Will, annoyed at his behavior, decided to offer his spot to the brother, basically to get him to stop complaining. Yeah, dude, if I just had a dude sitting there going, I'd just say, could you shut the fuck up? This began a long series of the brother going in and out or standing at the entrance, badgering the pods while the players played. A turn or two later, Will scooped a bit out of frustration of me countering something of his again, and the brother's antics, I believe. It's really the last thing I remember out of the actual game being played, because after Will scooped, he and the brother started to get into a rather heated argument. It's like I say, man, I think one of the best things about being a game store employee is just seeing two nerds really beef over something so fucking stupid. My attention was also kind of diverted, because at this point, the brother was eyeing me a lot while he vented out some frustration. Some of it I didn't hear, but one particular bit that I did hear basically rounded out to him believing that he should be playing instead of me. I guess he was under the impression that he was guaranteed a spot or something, and I want to make it very clear that not once did he or anyone else ask me if I wouldn't mind sitting out to allow him to play. Something I wouldn't at all mind doing since, again, I had work the next morning. The only reason why I was playing was because I was already sitting there and just having a good time. That's the thing, a lot of Magic the Gathering players are just sometimes like blue-collar workers, so at the end of the day, they're just there to play a quick game and then go home. They're not really there to deal with some bullshit, because they already have to deal enough with that at work, dude. Will, having enough of the brother's antics, got more heated with him, basically telling him to shut up and go outside. Supposedly, the brother's anger had been becoming a problem recently, and he was at his wit's end. The brother went as far as to challenge Will to a fight, and Will went as far as to ask Derek if he could put his brother in the hospital. Dude, I'm telling you, like, the employees just gotta be pulling out popcorn and candy to watch this shit. Like, I'd go out to the parking lot to watch some dudes fight. Derek tried to calm his brother down, but his brother was not really listening to anyone at this point. I was actually surprised there weren't any blows thrown inside the store when the brother got as close as he did to Will at one point. Through all this, he's still throwing some weird gestures and glances in my direction, despite me not once verbally talking to him. My anxiety was starting to work up. Yeah, I would probably also just kind of be weirded out if a dude was just like staring at me for some reason while he's yelling at other people. It's like he wants to involve you in the fight, but it's a situation where it's like, bro, you're fucking weird. Like, you're trying to start some random shit out of nowhere. You gotta love it when you think like yard work is over and done with, and then you don't realize there needs to be a third round of leaf blowers. Like, fuck me, man. At this point, the store owner, Brandon for this story, having been monitoring the situation, decided to tell the brother to leave the store. When the brother tried to talk back, Brandon only responded to close the door, get out, stay out, that kind of thing. However, the brother decided to do a very childish thing by keeping the door open and keeping one foot in the store, going as far as to taunt and go, "Ooh!" to the store owner. Chris, for this story, got up and shoved the guy out, and the two got into a heated shouting match. I didn't see much, but it did end with both of the store owners atop of the brother in the street. So I can only imagine blows of some kind did come to pass. It was this moment I discovered one of them had a concealed carry permit. What kind of a game store owner is carrying a gun? Like, don't get me wrong, I guess I could understand for nowadays, but still, it's like, that's insane. It's one of those moments where it's like, you better put those booster packs where you found them, motherfucker. Derek, by this point, had also been outside trying to de-escalate his brother. But for some reason or another, the brother just wasn't listening to any reason. I was mostly focused on packing up my stuff and leaving. I was also actively wondering if someone should have phoned the authorities with how out of hands things were starting to get. When one of the owners came in, he even said that the brother threatened to kill him. Sounds like someone's not coming back, are they? I didn't see the end of the altercation. I can only imagine that the brother was kicked permanently from the store. But with my anxiety spiking as much as it was, and the brother's weird aggression towards me, by the time I was finished packing, I had to ask if it was safe for me to even go outside. I was advised to stay in the store until we knew Derek has taken his brother home. And before I left, I hand Brandon a big handful of pistachios for the trouble. I usually bring a bag with me, and he likes eating out of it a lot. Okay. Cool. Have a good old hand of pistachios, I guess. The entire drive home, I was kind of alert and on edge, still trying to contemplate everything that had happened with little success. Even now, I'm still having troubles understanding what the guy's problem was. I was told at the store that the guy's attitude has been kind of unraveling for a while, and one player said he heard he was having problems with his girlfriend or something. But it was very surreal to see him seemingly actively looking for some kind of fight. I've seen heated arguments at the store before through games or whatnot, but nothing ever escalated to this kind of level before. Hopefully, it doesn't happen again. You know, I can understand the annoyance of being invited to play Magic, but not really getting a chance to play it. But I will say, if you are offered a spot and then you just kind of pull that, no, then what happens to you just happens to you. But you can't just be a deckhead like this. Like, it's kind of crazy when people kind of span out of control just because they don't get what they want, or just because they showed up to something they didn't even want to go to. The best moral to the story that I can say is, if you're planning to bring somebody that you know is not going to have a good time at a game store or just in general, just don't. Just don't. Then you won't end up like Derek. Our next story delves into the world of Vampire the Masquerade, which is sort of a D&D-like tabletop experience. But before we delve into the story, I do have to announce this does have some sort of history with sex. I wasn't supposed to say that! But before we delve into the story, I do have to say that this does delve into some topics that involve SH, harassment, a little bit of stalking, since the story does have a bit of some past that delves into that. So if you're not really into those antics, then maybe it might be best to skip to this time right here, and from there continue the video. But if y'all are here to stay, then let's go ahead and delve into the next story called My First Tabletop RPG Experience Ruined by the DM and Insane X, made by Lost Mono Kuma Cub 3 years ago. An old high school friend of mine, Ricky, showed up at my job one day, and we started to catch up a little bit. He invited me out to lunch, where he tells me that he wanted to run a game called Vampire the Masquerade. I haven't played any tabletop RPGs before, and assumed it was just some sort of board game, so I agreed without a question. Mostly because I had lost touch with a lot of friends and needed to get out of that work then home rut I was in. I come to this place and was surprised to see 2 other friends, Alan and Tara, there as well. We spent that first night getting a feel for the game, setting boundaries, which weren't many because we didn't mind graphic, mature themes, and making out characters. I don't remember much besides that Alan and Tara played characters that were prisoners from the Vampiric Council, and I decided to act as the council's doormat in the beginning. It sucks that I learned all that I needed to know, only to play 4 sections. Alright, so far so good, pretty casual, but eventually this is probably going to spiral somewhere. The first 2 sections were mostly introductions, learning a little about each other's characters, and getting our feet wet with RPGing. Around the end of the second section, I noticed that Tara was flirting with me a bit, both in and out of the game. Afterwards, we were smoking and waiting for my ride when Tara asked me if our characters should have an in-game romance. I didn't mind and was a little surprised that she was playing a lesbian, because she had said that she doesn't think she could ever date another girl. Well, Tara is a lesbian and came out to me right then and there. I was shocked but was very supportive because I'm bisexual myself. She confessed that she always found me attractive, but we decided to take things slow IRL. But in game, I would give her what she wants. And then they say, I promise this was important. It's like, I promise this is going somewhere, sit tight. In the third game, my character ended up saving Alan and Tara by killing a council member and setting up the next plot hooks for section 4. In the middle of the next week, Ricky hit us up to let us know that he'd be inviting another player. We said it was okay and gave ideas on how we could introduce them to the party. The day comes and I walk in to see my freaking ex-boyfriend, Matthew. I gotta say, this oven is just fucking baking. Like, there's some cookies being made and you can already tell something's gonna get burnt. To give some backstory, my ex and I ended on bad terms. He was controlling, manipulative, and overall abusive. After I ended things, I still tried to remain friends, but stated that I needed space. which he did the opposite. He flat out refused to believe that I broke up with him, and he asked every chance he got for me to get back with him. And when I said no, he would call me every name in the book. If I tried to distance myself, he would use our natural friends against me by telling them that he wanted to unalive himself just because I was treating him so badly, which caused me to lose a lot of them because they refused to listen to my side. He tried forcing himself on me multiple times as well. He would threaten me to keep me quiet, and I was terrified to speak up. Dumb mistake, I know, but I was a teen and I thought I could handle it alone. Always tell a trusted adult if you go through something like this as a kid. Yeah, no jokes aside, like, that's some pretty terrible stuff. And generally, if you're dealing with things like that, best thing I can always say is just, like, talking to a friend or just trying to help find a way to get out of that. You know, I gotta say, after reading that, it kind of makes me question why there would be a story, just because I don't feel like I would want to be in that same room with that person. Like, I feel like, for me, personally, if someone terrible like that was in the same room that I was gonna play with, I'd just be like, yeah, I'm done. Until they're not here, I'm not gonna come back, which I feel like is fairly reasonable, right? Like, nobody would argue with that. I pulled Ricky to the side and tried to tell him that if I'd known it was Matthew, then I wouldn't have wanted him here. Ricky said that he thought it didn't matter since we were friendly with each other before graduation. I wanted to leave but had no money for an Uber. My sister couldn't come get me right away. Okay, never mind. Scratch what I said before about that. Why would you stay? Never mind. I see why. I'm just a bit of a dumbass. And no one else could give me a ride, so I was stuck. I decided to play to wait out the time and talk with Ricky again after I got home. I sat next to Tara, and Matthew sat across from me. We picked up the story where we left it off, and it was helping Alan and Tara escape. We made it to the city, where we searched for clothes in the garbage to disguise ourselves, especially since I was covered in blood. We were going to sleep under a bridge where we were approached by Matthew. He found us because of the smell of ancient blood on me and offered us sanctuary. This is how we were going to join in the resistance. It was all go until I stated that I would like to wash the blood off me first thing when we got to the housing, and Matthew's expression changed. Matthew said, I offer her my room and bathroom to get cleaned up in, as well as change of clothes. I accepted and explained how I went to shower, but Matthew jumped in and said, I followed to watch her, and when she comes out, I'm standing there eyeing her body. I ask if she'd like help getting dressed. Oh, dude. What the fuck? Which I quickly denied and forced him out of the room. He tried to roll to see if he can stay, but Ricky said that since it was his room, he could stay. Are you fucking kidding me? So your friend tells you that this was awkward and that they don't really feel comfortable playing with this person, and then when they do a moment like this, they proceed to go, well, in lore terms, it is his room, so he can't stay. Like, buddy, what are you trying to get from this? So I went back in the bathroom and changed, much to Matthew's annoyance, but I didn't care. I quickly exited his room and went to Tara, where I explained how I was comforting her and how I kissed her, which was to turn into an intimate scene and fade to black. Matthew interjected, saying, I walk in and see them kissing and ask if I can join, which Ricky asked him to roll for. Dude, something's off with Ricky. I'm gonna be real. Ricky's just fucked. Tara and I were shocked and stated that this went against our consenting rule, which no one could roll their way into sleeping with other PCs. Ricky went on to describe how we see Matthew watching us and that we continued our fun time in front of him until he walks in to join. Dude, yeah, right off the bat, Ricky's a fuckhead. Yep, Ricky and Matthew are on some fuck shit, I'm just telling you. I flat out said nope and quit the game right there. I sat outside and Tara joined me, saying that she was planning to quit as well. Matthew came out to leave, offering me to ride home, and I said no. He saw Tara and I holding hands and said, well, maybe we can bring that scene to life. I have my own place now, and we can all go there together. Okay, okay, I'm gonna say this right now. That's a fucking no-no. Like, outside the game trying to harass people with that, nah, dude, that is a no-no. If you ever deal with that shit, flat out spit on a motherfucker. Because, dude, Hell no. You don't have some dude walk up to you and be like, now that the game's over, maybe we can make it into reality. Like, what the fuck? And Ricky's just a dickhead. Ricky in this story is just a full-on dickhead. You can tell Ricky's cucking it, dude. Like, Ricky's not DMing, he's cucking, dude. Tara actually flipped out on him for me and cursed him out, calling him a creep and how much of a douchebag he's been. Ricky comes out and tries to defend Matthew, saying something along the lines of, he just wanted to see you again. I thought it was okay. Okay, yeah, Ricky's just a dumbass. Ricky's just a dum-dum. Ricky's just a dum-dum, dude. Ricky's got the fucking IQ of an orc. This breaks out into a shouting match, while poor Alan just stands by in shock. Matthew eventually leaves, and Tara's ride shows up, and I just leave with her and stay at her place that night. Alan, Tara, and I all dropped out of the game and haven't talked to Ricky or Matthew ever since. Tara and I dated for a few months, but broke up and stayed friends to this day. She even got married and adopted a child with her partner. Oh, that's cute. And I'm happily with my own girlfriend of 3 years now. I didn't let this sour my love for RPGs and D&D though. But I stay away from in-game romances, even with NPCs. It's just always interesting to me when people don't understand the social aspect of relationships, when one person might hate another person in that relationship because of what that person did. But you still have to have that one friend that's like, I just wanted everything to go back to normal. But the thing I'm the most happy about, though, is that this person's love for RPGs and D&D was, like, not ruined. Because I could just see that being, like, such a huge memory or instance of, like, why you wouldn't want to get into it, or, like, why it's such a bad memory. But you know what? Good on for you for finding the strength to say, fuck that guy, and I'm still gonna play games. But that's all the tabletop terrors that I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video and liked what you saw, be sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends that might have had the exact same experience or might have experiences that they want to share of their own. And if you're interested in telling your own story, be sure to join our Discord in the link below, where you'll be able to message me directly or just message publicly to tell your tale of what happened at your experience. And if you're lucky, you might just be the next terror tale to be told on these series of videos. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.